Well, I guess it's better late than never. You know what I'm talking about. A brand new episode of The Impact Factor. The Impact Factor is what happens when two scientists and two best friends, one of them quite sleepy, get together to talk about video games. My name is Alex Samocha, and I'm joined this week, as I am every single week here in The Impact Factor, by the guy who is now, finally, hopefully, in high definition, my co-host, Charles Fliss.
It's good to have my brand new mic all set up, and it's nice to be here and awake. Are you ready for a fantastic fourth episode?
No, none of the Fantastic Four. No, nothing with the four or fourth is good. I don't care if it's at the end of the title, in the middle of the title. So, alright, sorry folks, just tune out now. This episode's probably going to be bad.
Oh, I don't know. I think that everyone should stick around. Don't make yourself invisible. This episode, we might just catch fire. It's going to be the thing you'll always want to listen to. Definitely going to be a fantastic fourth episode.
Oh, God. Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him on Twitter at the Fliss. Don't encourage him by emailing the impactfactorpodcast@gmail.com. Don't do any of that. Please, this guy, he's skirted through life just being, having these yes men, surrounded by yes men and women. Come on, let's be fair here. So, no, don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. But do hit him up on Twitter at the Fliss or at impactfactorpodcast@gmail.com to tell him why you fine people are receiving this episode a day late.
Well,
this guy,
this guy had a very important business trip.
Yeah, okay, volunteer business trip. Let's get that in the books right away.
Yeah, but still, an official. I have paperwork to show that it was an official business trip.
Okay.
And if you took 2 trains home from Tokyo late at night, you'd be tired too.
Fair enough. Just ribbing you, man. Anyway, the Impact Factor is where I bring my perspectives as a biomedical scientist and combine them with, and I guess usually against, Fliss's social scientist world view to have great discussions about video games. We're 4 episodes in, Fliss, and we finally hit a milestone. A slower week in video game news.
Amazing.
It's great, right? I know. Oh, I never thought it would happen. It's probably actually going to be slow the next couple of weeks leading to E3, but fortunately for us, this industry is still quite fast, and there's a bunch we can talk about. So let's get it started right away with some news and views. In an academic journal, News and Views collects the best of recent events and findings. Here, Fliss and I scour through the week in video game news to find the stories with the biggest impact. We got a bunch of smaller stories this week, but a lot of them actually have, I think, pretty long-lasting implications and could make a pretty big impact moving forward. So, my half-asleep co-host, or hopefully 100% awake co-host, what do you think was the most impactful story this week?
Well, the most impactful story of the moment is that I'm drinking Boss coffee, which, if you haven't seen the commercials for it, they feature Tommy Lee Jones as an alien visiting Earth. And, of course, the country he chooses to visit is Japan, where he attempts to fit in by doing various odd jobs. And the punchline, you have to see the videos, but the punchline is the best part, where they're flying away, and he's talking to the alien high command, and he's saying, we've got to destroy this planet. It's just not worth keeping them around. And then in that flashing moment, he remembers the taste of Boss coffee, and he says, no, wait, they have a chance. They might develop into something worth keeping.
Man, Japan loves Tommy Lee Jones. Also, there was some sort of, I think, disaster relief video where a bunch of people were singing this old kind of like Japanese folk song, and a bunch of them, like different pop stars or different just like famous people, and all of a sudden Tommy Lee Jones, his big old mug just comes in there and is like singing Japanese. It's such a I don't know, out of body is probably too strong a word, but it's such a bizarre experience to see good old Tommy Lee Jones pop in.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you're just walking through the subway station and then boom, there's his face right up there, shilling for a coffee company or for a mobile company. He's done some amazing commercials here. Definitely worth checking out.
How does Boss compare? Oh man, we're getting way off rails, folks. But how does Boss coffee compare to something like your average Starbucks or something?
Well, I mean, it's not Starbucks by any means. Boss is a can coffee. So you pick it up at convenience stores and that kind of thing. It goes for about $1 a can. More like 80 cents with the current exchange rate.
Ooh, rough.
Yeah.
Economic joke here, folks.
but it is my canned coffee of choice, definitely here.
Okay.
But
so, what is your video game story of choice?
Well, my video game story of choice actually may be something that's really kind of a small thing for most people, but for me, it's a really big deal, and that's that Capcom is making PS3 fight sticks usable with the re-release of Ultra Street Fighter 4 on PS4. And
all right, we need a celebration song here. I don't have one queued up, so celebration. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. We don't want to go into any kind of copyright territory, so that's the patented TIF celebration story. But yeah, it's awesome. God, I was so worried that Capcom would buck the trend that people have recently been doing, where they've been, Mortal Kombat X came out and they use the driver, and this driver, to kind of take a step back, is these guys, the team behind the fighting game Skullgirls, which is this kind of like indie, smaller production. It's made by guys who were in the fighting game community,
funded on
knew
Kickstarter.
What worked. Yeah, exactly. So I found it on Kickstarter. Actually, I think it was Indiegogo.
Oh, yeah,
I think they use it. Whatever. It's pretty functionally the same. But got it funded, got it going, and it's really kind of this fundamental fighting game. It's the basics of movement options and footsies and frame analysis and being able to pull off kind of frame linked combos, and it's still got a pretty solid community to it. But one of the things is they're really devoted to making the fighting game community the best place it can be. And to that extent, one of the things they did when working on porting Skullgirls from the PS3 to the PS4 was develop a driver. And basically that allows you to plug in your PS3 fight stick into the PS4 and have it work. And it works pretty seamlessly. And you would think this would be a pretty simple thing to accomplish, right? Because they're both USBs. They both use the same kind of USB connection. So it seems bizarre that it wouldn't work. But yeah, this is great news that Capcom is supporting PS3 fight sticks on Ultra Street Fighter 4 on the PS4.
Yeah, very exciting. We covered this before, but I am still a dedicated last genner, and I just bought a new Mad Catz fight stick, which is
a very sexy fight stick at that. I'll give you it. He sent me some pics, folks. It looks good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I keep it on my couch. It never touches the floor. I love it so much. But it's specifically for PS3, right? And it's supposed to be compatible with PS4 if you have those drivers. And so that's great. It's really good news. Fight sticks are a very expensive peripheral. The one I got is kind of a mid-level fight stick. Good.
Is it a tournament edition? Is it a TE?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. For the folks out there, that's like, you can have a range of quality, and even the cheapest ones are still not that cheap. They're probably around $100. But you really want to get a tournament edition stick, because they use more quality parts. A lot of them use these Sawana parts. It's the name of the company that makes really solid parts. And basically, you can know that your inputs will be more reliable, and the stick will hold up to more wear and tear if it's this tournament edition.
Right. What's really key about those parts, right, is that those are the parts that are designed to be used in the actual arcade machines. So these are the things that have to stand up to little kids jamming the stick around and mashing down the butts and still be responsive. And so they're great. You can count on these sticks lasting for a really long time.
Yeah, it's great. So there's some weird... I read the post on the Capcom Unity... on a post on their blog about how you get it, and it's kind of funky still. Like, you have to plug in your PS4 controller and turn your PS4 controller on, and then in the second USB slot you need to plug in your fight stick, but leave your PS4 controller plugged in, and it's some kind of weird stuff. And there's you have to do some weird plugging, turning on, turning off of controllers to have two fight sticks work on the same PS4. But I appreciate that they're using the effort to go into it. Now, this could all be mute, because everything I've heard says the Ultra Street Fighter 4 port on PS4 is garbage, with menus stuttering, crazy visual and audio lags and glitches, as well as a reported 6+ frame delay from your input to a character's move. So again, we're going kind of deep into terminology here, but a frame is like a single snippet of motion in a character's animation. And it can be kind of used as a time, because if a game is running 60 frames per second, 1/60th of a second is a frame.
And these frames are really key for fighting games specifically, more so than in many other types of games, because frames are how you measure the duration of a given move for a character. And when you're competing against another person using characters, knowing the frames that each move requires allows you to measure what your opponent is doing, and it allows you to measure the risk and reward of each of your own moves. And I usually try to avoid comparisons between video games and sports, but this is the same kind of thing as understanding a playbook in football, and this is why we analyze the speed of running backs, the drop back times of quarterbacks. These same kind of stats are what we're trying to get with fighting games and frames.
Exactly. It accomplishes the same thing. But frames are super important, right? Because you need to know how many frames your opponents are attacking with to know when you can attack back, when they have vulnerability frames. Pulling off combos requires you to act within a certain number of frames. So say a move is 3 frames long, and then sometimes you'll have maybe 2 to 3 frame transition period, where in that period of time you have to input the next move to have it connect as a combo. Otherwise, the opponent, if they were, say, holding block, would be able to block it. And so something like a 6-frame delay is crazy. That's 6/60th or 1/10 of a second lag, which at the highest levels of play is going to be crazy. It's going to completely throw off everyone who've been playing this game with no input lag.
Right, and we're not talking about making it unplayable, but we are talking about making it, where it's not really illustrative of a player's skill in a tournament at that point.
Exactly. The casual person's not really going to notice much wrong with this port of Ultra Street Fighter 4, but, even you and I, Fliss, we probably it might feel weird to us, but none of us are have frame data memorized, or you really are pulling off these frame perfect combos. But still something that's disappointing that it seems like it was rushed to get out on PS4. It was a Capcom, a kind of in-house porting studio that did this port and brought it over to the PS4, and just disappointing. So and I think last night or yesterday afternoon, it was announced that there is a patch that is done, and it just needs to be put onto the PS4. So hopefully that gets rid of this input lag. But it's just disappointing. It seems like Capcom has a history of these ports being really terrible at first. When Ultra Street Fighter 4 first came to PC, it was a buggy, unplayable, piece of crud. And now it's a really good version. So hopefully with a couple patches and within a couple weeks at most, hopefully it can be fixed. And this is a big deal, too, because Capcom, before coming into this, was like, hey, guys, this is going to be the version that's played at all of our Capcom Pro Tour events, as well as at EVO. And so now they've had to go back on that. They're like, all right, until further notice, you're playing on the default consoles and hardware that you have. So it's been kind of a messy week for Ultra Street Fighter 4 on the PS4.
Yeah, well, disappointment from Capcom is nothing new, but I think that
that's right.
This being rushed, is not. I guess it's not really as disappointing to me as it might be, because I'm hopeful that what they're not doing is rushing Street Fighter V. And if they're rushing this out, then maybe that means that Street Fighter V is in good shape, right? And that they know that they have to get the port of Ultra Street Fighter 4 out, so that when Street Fighter V does come out, people have already spent their money and been practicing on Ultra Street Fighter 4. But this does, I would take this as hopefully an indication that Street Fighter V is good, it's on schedule, and that we're going to see it early next year.
Yeah, well, speaking of Street Fighter V, the last little bit of this piece of news before we move on, I'm sure people who aren't into fighting games are like, oh my god, these two are still talking about this, is that Capcom, with the release of Ultra Street Fighter 4 on PS4, said hey, we're already looking into using the same driver for Street Fighter V. But it's a curious piece of news, right? Because it's good in one sense, because I would really, really hope that they port this driver over for their Street Fighter V on PS4, because I really don't want to buy another fight stick. But there's, at least in my own experience, there's kind of a skill threshold. I played so long on a pad, or what people refer to as just generally the PS3 or PS4 controller, and I was okay. But something about the 6 buttons not being all laid out in the same plane made it really tough to pull stuff off. So I know that I want to start playing Street Fighter V with a fight stick. I've known that for a long time. But it's curious for them to say that they're looking into it, because if it seems like it's just a driver you can install in your game and have it work. Sure, there might have to be some weird workarounds, like you have to plug in a controller, turn it on, unplug it, put it in your fight stick,
I'm pretty
or whatever.
sure that what they mean by looking into it is that they mean their marketing department and their sales departments are looking into how much they think adding those drivers would impact their sales of branded PS4 fight sticks, right? Because you have lots of branded PS4 fight sticks that will be coming out, right? Where the faceplate is Street Fighter V, and I'm sure they really want to, blazon that on there. To be fair, the Street Fighter V logo is awesome. But
oh yeah,
I'm sure that they're really looking at this from a more marketing economic standpoint than an actually like, can we put it in the game standpoint, especially Capcom.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Capcom.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And it's tough though, because I can see both ways. I can see, would be really bad if all PS3 fight sticks work, because then no one is going to buy a new one. Street Fighter V, it's a big game. A lot of people buy it who aren't like into fighting games just because it's the new Street Fighter. But that could really kill a lot of the it's branded PS4 stick sales or any other kind of PS4 stick sales. But then also, I think I can see it from the other side too. Is like, if a company like Mad Catz, who's kind of like the leader at least over here, and like the number, like most people who have a fight stick have a Mad Catz fight stick, just by the principle of all these partnerships they have. If they're the one company that's like, other fight sticks, like the Horis or other stuff, you're going to have to buy a PS4 specific one. But we've worked out a deal with Capcom that your Mad Catz PS3 fight sticks will work on PS4. Just can kind of encourage people to like keep their Mad Catz or buy new Mad Catz or support Mad. Be like, oh man, Mad Catz is really cool. They know that I don't want to buy another $200 peripheral again, and so they got my back. I give Mad Catz my business. So I can see it both ways.
Yeah, well, if Mad Catz is willing to work out that kind of a deal with Capcom, and if Capcom is willing to make that kind of deal work, then I have no problem supporting Mad Catz fight sticks, because they're already really good quality stuff, and they tend to last longer than a lot of the Hori sticks anyway. So they're already putting out one of the best products on the market. But moving right along, Alex, what would you say is the most impactful news of this week?
Oh man, there's a lot I want to talk about, but I think personally the biggest piece of news just in the past week was that we knew it was coming. All right, I need to temper my time. Bloodborne is getting DLC. Oh man, I'm so excited. Bloodborne is such a phenomenal game. Check out theimpactfactor.blogspot.com for my review. It's one of the reviews I'm most proud of. I really go into depth with this game. This game is phenomenal. And I really had such high expectations going into it, because it's a Souls game. It's by From Software. Hidetaka Miyazaki came back as the director for the first time since Dark Souls, the first Dark Souls. But it's just such an exceptional, brilliantly designed, evocative, powerful, cool game. And I was, fully absorbed. I put, I think, probably 80 to 100 hours in.
Holy moly.
Already. Yeah, I've got the Platinum Trophy, which for people who aren't in the PlayStation infrastructure means every single accomplishment that the developer said, hey, I wonder if you can do this. I've done all of those.
That's insane.
So, yeah. I did that in 2 weeks.
You still have a girlfriend after that?
Yeah, she's really supportive. She loves watching Souls games. So, I mean, a Souls game should come out every year, because I could play that game for 100 hours in 2 weeks, and then she's into it.
Well,
so
to be fair, I actually love watching Souls games too. I mean, they're just super exciting whether you're playing or watching them.
Yeah, so, I mean, Bloodborne is so good. And I think Bloodborne is actually probably one of the best to watch, because the combat is fast and frantic, and you've got a lot of parries and quick dodges, and you have brutal combos, and blood kind of explodes out of enemies and coats your player, and just such a cool game. So I mean, I figured it was inevitable, but I'm so glad to hear it. And so Sony came out and said it, From Software came out and said it, and then Shuhei Yoshida, kind of the face of PlayStation these days, came out and said it, and he's so into it too. I mean, he's one of the top executives at PlayStation, and he's platinumed the game, so he's super into Bloodborne. But Bloodborne is such a successful game critically and from a fan perspective. But Bloodborne was actually bigger for Sony than they anticipated. They've put out some press statements before that they had high expectations for Bloodborne, because it was kind of this marquee PlayStation exclusive, PlayStation title. We know you guys love the Souls games. But then even still they set pretty lofty sales expectations for Bloodborne. Even though the game, the franchise has been progressively selling more. Demon's Souls, commercially was a failure. It never really took off in Japan, and didn't really take off in the US until the Game of the Year awards came around, and Demon's Souls started winning Game of the Year from big places like from GameSpot and other big outlets, and then that kind of fueled people's fire for this game. And Dark Souls sold well, but really it's been this snowball rolling down a hill. It's been getting more and more momentum. Dark Souls 2 sold okay, but so they didn't really set really super high expectations for Bloodborne. But they put out a statement, they're like, we set really high expectations for what we thought it could sell, and it blew those away.
Why do you think that Bloodborne beat, the other games beat the expectations? What was it about the new setting? What was it about Bloodborne? Was it the PS4? Is that what drove us on here? What changed?
So I think in my mind, there's three factors that determine this. First, the Souls franchise is getting increasingly bigger. The more it goes on, the longer it's out there. More and more people are hearing about it. More and more people are taking the time to go back and play like a Dark Souls or a Dark Souls 2 and get into the series. And I guarantee you, if you put the time into those games and you're like, I guess some people don't like it, but you would be in the minority. If you put time into those games, you're going to fall in love. The design is just that good. So I think that's it. This series has had time to kind of ferment and kind of grow into its own thing, and so people were excited for the new release. I think, secondly, the PS4 was critically needing an exclusive that people cared about. So the PS4 has been on the market for almost 2 years now, and there's really not a ton of compelling exclusives, or at least from like this AAA big production standpoint. There's a lot of games you can get, a lot of indie games you can get exclusively on PS4 versus Xbox One, but they're also on the PC, and there's just smaller games. But Bloodborne was that. Hey, this is our big budget, cool title. Xbox One doesn't have it. Wii U doesn't have it. PC doesn't even have it. You can only play it on PS4. So I think that has it too. And I think it hit at the perfect time. There was no real big game releases. It's just kind of gained that momentum. So I think those all contributed to it being so much bigger than even Sony thought it would be. And I'm glad, because for games like that, I'm guilty of this, but I roll my eyes at every time Call of Duty has record-breaking sales figures, and they're not bad games, but for a game that's so true to itself and so thoroughly and intricately designed, and something that's so confident and competent and bold and great, it's great to see that it sold well too, and I cannot wait for more DLC.
Yeah, well, I think that comparing Bloodborne and Call of Duty is really like, apples and pickup trucks in terms of comparisons. Because Call of Duty, like you said, it's a yearly series. It's made by 3 different developers working with conglomerates of studios that are putting out a slightly different version of the same game every year. And it's the same way the baseball season is the same but different every year. It's something you go back to, you're comfortable with, you enjoy it. It sounds like the Souls games. I'm only just now getting started on them myself. Don't have anywhere near what your experience with them.
I'm gonna put that fire under your butt, man. You gotta play those freaking games. They're so good.
I'm trying to start with the beginning. I just bought Demon Souls on the $5 sale a couple weeks ago for PlayStation. Yeah. So it's there, it's ready. I think that might actually be the next big game I tackle. We'll talk about that later in the show. Stay tuned. But yeah, I think that Call of Duty is comfortable, whereas the Souls games, they do knock you out of your comfort zone, right? Because they're extremely hard.
They're hard in the way that they are brutally honest with what they expect of you. So you need to play at a certain level of precision and a certain level of caution and a certain level of understanding. You learn through failure in the Dark Souls game, in the Souls games. You learn through trying stuff out. If it doesn't work, you die, and then you go back and you try it again. And again, it's not hard in an unfair sense. Everything is perfectly fair, but it just has super high demands of you. If you don't dodge an attack at the exact right time, you're going to get hit, and you die within a hit or two from almost any enemy.
That's awesome.
But the same can be said of all of your enemies, including bosses. Boss fights, when done right, can take only about a minute and a half. None of this Final Fantasy hour-and-a-half long boss fight nonsense grinding out millions or billions, in the case of Yazamat in Final Fantasy 12, hit points. You hit hard, and so do your enemies, and I love that design principle. Every single encounter, you're nervous, you're tense, because one slip up, you could die.
So what genre would you try and define the Souls games as?
So I would say they're action RPGs. I'd say Demon Souls and the first Dark Souls are kind of more tactical action RPGs, and then we get to the spectrum, Bloodborne, where it's just very much like an action RPG. So yeah, anybody who's listening, if you haven't picked up a Souls game, I've ranked them. I would suggest starting with Bloodborne. I think it's probably the most accessible to get into. It's still a brutally challenging game, but I would start with Bloodborne, and then I would go straight to Dark Souls, which is my favorite in the Souls franchise.
Well, I'm going to be ignoring your advice and starting with Demon Souls, because that's what I have.
Be prepared, brother. That game is... That game, I'm going to give you a tip that's going to help you, because that game is probably the hardest in the series. Go Magic. Start as a Royal, I think, is a starting class, the one that starts with Soul Arrow.
Right.
Start with Soul Arrow, and go magic.
See, I've read a lot. I feel like you're going to get some hate for that because people say that, if you're using magic, because that disappears in the later games, right? That if you're using magic, you're not getting the real experience.
The real experience is surviving against steep odds. So Demon Souls is tough, man. You're, especially as a first-time Souls player, you can go back through, you can play, if you like it enough, you can go back through and play a second time where you're just all melee or all bow and arrow or whatever. But I really highly suggest, to try to alleviate some of those getting into the Souls franchise frustrations, at least put some points into magic. And I would start as a royal, so you start with Soul Arrow just to have it on you.
Got it. Well, I'm looking forward to checking that out. That's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. In other RPG news, though, kind of move away. Okay, I'm excited for Bloodborne. I could talk about it for the rest of this hour and a half, but Witcher 3, we talked about that last week. That was the big news story. It came out, got great reviews, people loving it. Apparently, lots of people are loving it. So we know before it released, 1 million people pre-ordered it, which is insane. That's huge numbers. And some follow-up Witcher 3 news. Witcher 3 is the biggest, UK released at least, of the year so far. It's kind of shattered sales expectations. It's going big. It's the biggest title in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to, if not the biggest title in the US. So just our numbers are a little bit delayed. You have to wait for the kind of monthly reports to come out. But yeah, this is huge. So The Witcher 1 and Witcher 2 were popular within a pretty core audience of people. But it looks like The Witcher 3 really kind of caught fire and caught on, and now is the best-selling release of the year so far in the United Kingdom, and it's only been out for like a week.
Yeah, you might say that people are really bewitched by this game.
Yeah, put a spell on them.
Yeah, I'm out of puns here. You win this round, sir. I was not prepared for such an astute riposte.
I wonder why you can't come up with more puns.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me. All right.
Don't bog it. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm running out of stuff too.
It's one thing that I find really interesting about the way The Witcher seems to really be taking hold of people is the way that it's letting people use their imagination in the game, so that even though you're using one character, right? You've got one main character that's the same for every user.
Geralt of Rivera, I believe his name is, something like that.
Yeah, but so you're using the same character, you're using this guy, but you're still able to kind of write your own version of his story. And this really reminds me of the Choose Your Own Adventure books that we read as kids, right? Where you could, go through and turn to certain pages to get certain outcomes. And people seem to be doing this a certain amount by reloading certain saves to go back and try and encounter again and see if they could find something or do something a different way. And I think that's awesome. I think having this great game, open world style thing where you can go back and just keep trying new things while you're playing it is incredible. I mean, what a take on a game.
Yeah, there's so much depth there too, because I heard there's side quests where if you just kind of go on the beaten path, go to point A, pick up the item, return to point B, you can just kind of move through the game and not see everything, but there's so many different twists and turns, and side quests all have their own stories and hidden narratives, and there's really what I think is emerging for a lot of people, and which people have talked about for the Witcher series before, is this idea of emergent narrative. So you're exploring the world, and a lot of open world games have this. You're kind of like, emergent narrative, like, oh, last night I went to this cave and I fought a mud crab, and then a giant mud crab came out, for Skyrim. But this one really encourages that, like, oh, I went to this bog and there was this hidden treasure chest, and I found this note, and it led me to this town, and this guy mentioned it. Oh, there's so much of this that's built into the game. That really feels like you're shaping your own world and shaping your own narrative. And so I think that Choose Your Adventure is a cool thing to note. But I'm really happy for the franchise. I'm really excited to play Witcher 3 once I kind of get more time on my plate. But yeah, so seems like good news for a good game.
Yeah, and speaking of good games, it looks like we've got some cool stuff that could be coming out.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, what do you want to get into first, man?
Well, personally, I love horror games, and after the heartbreak of Silent Hill being or collapsing, rather, the
R.I.P.
Yeah,
we'll soon, man.
We'll miss you.
I gotta go put up PT again.
Hey, at least you've got it, man. At least you've got it.
Yeah, you're never gonna get to have it on your PS4.
I'm not, but I am gonna get to play it on yours.
That's true.
Just be ready, because that's happening.
I know. This kid's gonna invite himself over to my apartment. Just be like, I'm playing PT.
Yeah, move out of the way. I don't care what you're playing. Bloodborne DLC? Alright, I'll wait for that. But after that, I'm playing PT. But yeah, lots of cool news about horror games. Until Dawn has a release date, and it's really not that far away.
Yeah, Until Dawn is coming out August 25th.
And
in a year where a lot of stuff doesn't seem to be coming out. That's awesome news just for starters.
Yeah,
it's coming out.
Yeah, getting a release date this early is great. Having a release date that soon is great. And you want to talk about choose your own adventure games? Like, sounds like it's gonna have a great setting. I'm really excited about it.
So, Fliss, tell us a little bit more about this setting.
Well, they're saying that it's going to take place in kind of a teen slasher setting, right? So the kind of thing that you would expect really from the horror movies that I think you and I kind of grew up with, the kind, your screams, things like that. So I'm really excited to kind of play around in that kind of world.
Yeah, it's a bunch of teens. They go up to party in a cabin in the woods, sound familiar, and then something starts going wrong. And it seems like it's such a cool setting because we've had a lot more of these kind of narrative-based adventure games that have been coming out recently with Telltale, with their excellent Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, Tales from the Borderlands, Game of Thrones. And then even with guys behind Remember Me coming in with Life is Strange, which people are really liking. And so it seems like there's this hunger for these kind of narrative-based adventure games where the gameplay is more just like choosing different dialogue options or choosing different paths you can take, and something kind of similar to games that David Cage has been making with Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. And so it's cool because it's kind of gives this idea of choose your own horror, this choose your own horror adventure. The decisions you make, what you say to what person could influence the outcomes, or if you're running away from this evil force, you can have the option to turn left or go straight or turn right, and the direction you choose could be life or death for his character. So that's one of the things that Until Dawn has really been really advertising is the choices you make, the decisions you make in the game will influence who lives and who dies in this game. And so that's really cool. Like, it's an interactive horror movie, and that's because every time you watch a horror movie, I know you and me, like, oh no, don't run into the shed. What are you doing? Gosh, no, he's gonna find you there. Oh, lock the door. And so the game gives you options like that. Like, do you spend time to barricade a door when someone's chasing you, or do you run and go try to hide, or do you try to keep running? Do you try to go through the window? And so it seems like, I'm really excited to play this game. Hopefully it's good. I think it looks okay at this point. I think it could go either way. These games sometimes run into a problem where there's not really much gameplay, or the animations look stiff, or the story is kind of like mind-numbingly, simple. But this game has potential, and it's got some star power behind it too. One of the main characters is voiced and made to look like Hayden Panettiere, so that's kind of cool, I guess. If you're into Hayden Panettiere, they announced that an actor from The Big Lebowski, I always forget his name. Peter Stormare, I think is his name. I think he's also in Fargo as one of the people. He's going to be in the game. So they got some celebrity talent behind it too, so that's kind of cool. But either way, I'm just excited to play through the game with Justine and see oh god, the killer's at the door. What should we do? Should we try and look, or should we try and run? It's going to be those really tense decisions, and knowing that if you mess up, someone can die. That's such a cool kind of thing that you don't really see that often.
Yeah, and I'm really hopeful that even if it's not, amazing, even if it doesn't blow us away, that it'll at least be fun as a kind of party game where you all sit around and take turns making decisions and stuff like that. And, the same way that it's fun to watch a horror movie in a group where you're all kind of, trying to, not jump into each other's arms. I'm completely guilty of, saying, Alex, hold me.
Yeah, well, you're squeamish to seeing blood on film still, so I don't even know how you say you like horror movies. You had to turn your eyes away at some freaking historic movies we watched in history class in high school.
That is not true. The movie you are thinking of is Inglourious Bastards, where a much younger me did not watch the scalping scene.
Okay,
and I was not the only one at that party who did not watch that scene.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Don't believe him, folks. This guy, the sight of blood, he faints.
This is slander.
This is my podcast. I could say what says and go. No, so it's good actually. I didn't know you'd gotten better about watching that. So that's a little breaking news here, folks.
Well,
Charles Fliss can now watch blood in movies.
Hey, I think what did it for me, right, is that I love zombie stories, and you watch enough zombie movies, and I think especially bad zombie movies, and especially European zombie movies, the blood is not amazingly realistic, and the writing doesn't always, translate really well in an English dub, and so there's definitely moments where you can kind of cheer for the villains, and cheer for those really kind of gruesome endings for certain characters. to the point where it can become almost a kind of strange comedy. That might sound really sick. I hope it doesn't. But
no way. Horror and comedy are intimately linked, and I love the blending of the two. Whether or not the movie intentionally tries to be comedy horror, something like Tucker and Dale versus Evil or Cabin in the Woods, both movies I highly recommend, or movies that are just so bad that they're funny. There's entertainment in all aspects of horror, and that's, I think, why it's I guess for the folks out there, horror is my favorite movie genre. Pretty much bar none. If the movie's good, I love the work that went into developing the characters, developing the evil force, and kind of expertly navigating those two. And I love the bad ones too. Some of them are so bad that I can't like, but those are kind of usually exceptions.
Yeah, I lean much more towards the comedy side of horror. I like exploring that. I don't overly like being really, really scared. So certainly having a bit of a scare is good, but I jump at every jump, and I jump high at every jump, so,
Yeah, so, yeah, putting this in the context of Until Dawn, then, I think it's interesting, because I think where Until Dawn can really straddle this line between failure and success is how seriously it takes itself. So if Until Dawn is trying to 100% selling it that this is the scariest, nail-biting, this is going to be the Until Dawn is going to be the scariest horror movie, cinematic experience you've ever seen, I think they could run into real issues there. Because there's going to be a little bit of corniness, gameness, like standing there, being able to choose which direction you run, or just the weird kind of character modeling that is still kind of endemic to video games. So I think if they straddle much more towards the B horror side, it's kind of like goofy, like it's scary, but it kind of knows that it's being this horror movie, I think that's where it'll find more success.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope it does go a little bit more the B horror direction. And I hope there's some great jump moments, those things where stuff pops out of you, because I think especially when you're immersing yourself in a game, we use that a lot, but there is a certain sense of being in the game that comes through there, and I think that could be really effective. And that's why, again, I think this could be a game that would be a lot of fun to play in a group, to make fun of each other.
Though I don't know why you're excited about it. You don't even have a PS4. This is a PS4 exclusive.
But you have a PS4, and did I just say it would be fun to play together? Doesn't this sound like a great game to play together, buddy? Don't you think so, buddy?
I do, but your butt lives in Japan, so I don't know what you're talking about. You just need to move out to the Bay Area. That's what you need to do.
Oh, man, officially called out. Here we are on episode 4.
Called out.
All right,
episode 4. Shout out to the foggy Bay Area. But yeah, in other horror game news, this is really exciting for me. So kind of to preface the story a little bit, the Irrational Studios, the developers behind such games you might know, BioShock or BioShock Infinite, they kind of disbanded following the DLC for BioShock Infinite a couple years ago. The 2K, the publisher, kind of disbanded all Irrational. Ken Levine, the head behind it, left. A bunch of people left, and so for a couple years now, we've been wondering what the heck are these people going to do. So the BioShock games are incredible. I prefer BioShock 1 over BioShock Infinity, but whatever. Infinite. But they're such phenomenal narrative games that try bold steps and really incorporate these first-person shooter elements in an interesting way and try and tell you something and kind of have both these philosophical groundings. So there's a lot of narrative talent. There's a lot of development, coding talent. There's a lot of design intelligence that for the people there. So I've been like, what are these people going to do? Well, this week gave us a piece of news that what at least a group of them are going to do. So there's a new game that was announced by a team of a lot of former Irrational developers, and the game is called Perception. So in Perception, you play as this blind heroine, Cassie Thornton, and as she explores this abandoned estate at Echo Bluff. And so she's living in Phoenix, Arizona, and she's been seeing visions of this kind of creepy house that have been haunting her for months or whatever. And then she finally finds out the location of this mansion, so she goes there. And then in this mansion, she's stalked by an evil presence. And the developers have described this game as a narrative horror adventure where you explore the house and need to figure out the mysteries of the house, of this monster, of Cassie's link to it. And I guess I kind of skip over this quickly, but your protagonist is blind. So there's a lot of cool stuff just in that description, but did this news story grab you, Fliss?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see what this new group, now calling themselves the Deep End game, right? The Deep End game is going to come out with. the deep end sounds like a really, first of all, that's a cool name. That's a great name for any studio developing.
That's a great gaming studio. Yeah, absolutely. It's catchy.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about horror games. I mean, that's already a good start. You have my attention. But yeah, this looking at the concept art that they put together for this, the way you kind of have to move around the house using a kind of echolocation that gives you kind of a blue outline to the world. To move around,
kind of like Daredevil, the first Daredevil movie, Daredevil Vision.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like that. It also looks, actually, I hate to say it, it looks a lot like Detective Mode.
Yep, that was the other thing that came to mind.
Yeah, so there it is. But it looks cool. It looks like a neat way of kind of letting you see some parts of the world. I like the way that it's not like a complete map, like you have to use this. I also like that they say that the way you will create this site is by making sounds, right? Because she's using a kind of echolocation. And those sounds carry the risk of alerting this evil presence to where you are. And so I love that idea. I love that idea that in order to explore the world around you, you have to put yourself at risk. And so every time you want to see something, you have to weigh the benefits and the risk of that. I think that sounds incredible.
And then just the idea of it too. I mean, you're a blind protagonist going into this creepy, haunted, possessed mansion where an evil spirit's following you. You're blind, not deaf, so you're going to be able to hear the creaks and stuff moving. And is it a monster? Is that just the shutters? What's going on? And so that's going to be a terrifying thing. And then, you really have to weigh whether or not you want to try and make a noise to be able to see where you're going, or stay still, and can the monster see you and you're not moving? Like, there's so many different exciting gameplay things they could do there that could make it a really kind of terrifying, and if not terrifying, interesting gameplay experience.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the kind of story that they're talking about, where you have to move through different areas of the house, and in discovering each area, you discover the story of the house through different eras. And this idea of a haunting that lasts generations is something that sounds really cool to me. Full disclosure here, I do like Supernatural, especially the early seasons of that show. And I like the combination that they bring in that show. And it looks like they're kind of trying to bring in this game between horror and mystery, right? Where the way that you defeat the horror is by solving the mystery. And so that just sounds like a great gameplay premise and a great combination for a game.
Yeah, exactly. The word horror in their description is flanked by narrative and adventure. So it's not trying to be like the new Outlast or something like that, which was a kind of very scary first-person game that was released. It's not trying to scare you out of your wits and like just be a horror game. It's trying to tell a story. It's trying to have these kind of mysteries, kind of adventure, puzzle-solving kind of elements to it too. So I think that could create a really interesting balance, because I really haven't seen anything like this. I think it's also kind of, it's the full circle. Everyone, when Gone Home first came out, you were in that creepy house, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is a horror house." So now it seems like this is this horror house. This is mystery. So it's the horror version of Gone Home.
Yeah, and one last thing that I want to mention here is that in reading the interview with the developer, he talks about how he's influenced in his setting of the game in Massachusetts by just that area. A lot of that stuff. That northeastern setting, right? Obviously, Stephen King sets a lot of his stuff in Maine. H.P. Lovecraft set his fictional worlds and towns mostly in Massachusetts, and used some real places in the greater New England area. And that whole kind of Lovecraftian, otherworldly horror is stuff that I really like. That's the kind of horror I really dig. And so, that's very exciting for me. That whole kind of milieu is really exciting for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a setting that's been ripe for horror for a long time, and so it's good on the people at Deep End Games, or the Deep End, that are really taking advantage of this. There's one little interesting kind of footnote to this story, though, is the Kickstarter is already up for this project, but when I checked, it wasn't like a runaway success, like like the Igavania, the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, or like Ukulele have been. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it might reach its funding goal. It has a pretty tentative funding goal. I think it's not super high. But it's interesting, like, the different things that, it seems like nostalgia is such a fuel to a lot of this Kickstarter fire, whereas new ideas are less successful. Like, there was another game that came out by former Rational devs on Kickstarter called The Black Hand, which was this kind of narrative, exploratory kind of game, and they just didn't raise enough money on Kickstarter, and the development is kind of on hold or defunct or canceled. So I don't know. It doesn't look good. The history of former Irrational devs coming to make their own games through Kickstarter isn't great, but it looks like Perception might have a better chance.
Yeah, and just, I was able to pull it up right here. They've got coming up on 1,500 backers with roughly $59,000 of a $150,000 goal with 26 days to go. So, I mean, when you compare their goal of $150,000 to the literally millions of dollars raised by those other games, that's peanuts. And so, I don't want to criticize the Igavania. I don't want to fault anyone for funding those kinds of nostalgia-based games, because they're not just based on nostalgia, right? They are based on some really good, solid gameplay, and I'm really excited about those games. But if you're looking for...
especially Bloodstained, for me. I'm especially excited about Bloodstained.
Yeah, definitely that makes me excited, more so than Yooka-Laylee, I agree. But, if you're looking for something that's genuinely new, if you're one of those people that gets on the internet and says, "What did we ever get any new ideas in games?" Well, this is your chance to make a new idea happen.
Yeah, games are stale. There's no new ideas. Oh, but I don't want to play indie games, because indie games suck.
Yeah, well, here's a game where, you're getting a protagonist who's going to be female, who's going to be blind, who's going to be in this really cool-looking world, a setting that is very rare in games to be in a kind of real-world setting. So if you're one of those people, put your money where your mouth is and get on this Kickstarter. Check that out. Again, the name of that game is Perception. The developers are The Deep End, and searching that on Kickstarter, you should be able to find it. So, I'm certainly considering funding this game myself, and I don't make a habit of funding anything on Kickstarter, but it does look like a really cool idea, and a game I would want to play.
Same. So I guess we're running out of time on our news and views, but let's just do a couple other things quickly. So it was announced just yesterday, I think, that FIFA, oh god, there's been some pretty crazy FIFA news that I don't know if we need to get into in this, but FIFA 16, I think, is this year's game. They do that the year before. But for the first time, they'll let you play as women, as female teams, like the U.S. national team and other national teams. Thank God. What? How long has FIFA been around and you can't play as any of the women teams until now?
Yeah, well, this is especially exciting for me because, my teams, of course, right, are the United States and then Japan, and then I also root for the Germans. But
all three of the women teams in those countries are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, the past 2 years, right, the final has been U.S. versus Japan. So, I'm psyched. Like, my teams are going to be amazing, high stat teams. I'm not going to have to jimmy anything to make my teams high stat for this game.
All right, let's frame this hype though. Are you even going to get FIFA though?
Well, I'm kind of hoping that other friends who are more hardcore about the game will get it, because first of all,
I see.
The only sport games that I play are football games. And I mean American football for any European listeners.
Football.
The less beautiful but substantially manlier game. I shouldn't make gender-based, judgments.
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Come on,
that was
so insensitive, dude.
Yeah.
Jeez, come on.
I know. If you need to stop.
Two scientists here. Come on, get it together.
Yeah. All right. Well, the game that is more violent and therefore satisfying for me personally is American football, and I like that a lot. So I like playing American football games, but the FIFA games have never really inspired me too much. But I am happy to see these women's teams featured.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, the modeling looks kind of bad currently. Like, they look almost PS3 era in terms of how blocky and bad they look, but I guess they haven't had time to refine all these character models, and if they're putting a bunch of them in. But it's a good initiative. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm happy for it.
Yeah, that is a game that you could stream on Twitch, but there are some other games that you can now no longer stream on Twitch.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So Twitch announced a ban on streaming any adult-only game. So the ESRB is this rating board on video games. They rate things through E for everyone. I don't know if it goes earlier than E for everyone. Then there's T for teen, M for mature, and then AO, which is adult only. And AO is it's a very rare rating, so very few games have it. Kind of, if nothing else, it's a commercial kiss of death. But previously you'd been able to stream some of these games, and now you cannot. So Fliss, what are a couple of the games that you cannot stream anymore?
Well, the most notable titles here are, of course, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Manhunt 2.
Which kind of posthumously got that, not posthumously, which kind of got that rating later because it was found out that you can there's some sort of sex mod you can have in it.
Right. And that's why I got that ban. Then Manhunt 2, and then the game that is not yet released, but Hatred.
Which is what you play as some sort of misanthrope and go into public places and kill people, and I don't know.
Yeah,
weird.
Hatred is a game that, we talked about my former problems with seeing blood on screen, but Hatred is a game that just holds no interest for me whatsoever. So, I don't have a problem with Twitch doing this. Their company, they've got to deal with enough problems with misinformation about video games. The last thing you need is video games that actually have somewhat toxic behaviors in them, even though of course we have the science to show that does not encourage you to actually commit those behaviors in real life. But I don't have a problem with them banning these games. For one thing, I'm not playing any of them, and I'm certainly not streaming them or watching streams.
Yeah, I mean, if we had more time, I'd go into a longer form discussion about this, but I guess you could summarize my thesis on this, or just, my thesis statement is just, again, there's a lot of kids who go on Twitch, and I don't want them coming across some of these games and being impacted in a negative way, and honestly, it's only a small handful of games, and they're not really games that are played that much anyway, and so I think it's just, whatever, it's good to protect some of this kind of more vulnerable audience, and if you want to, no one's stopping you from playing these games, but just don't stream it, so...
Yeah, and there are other, if you really want to stream it, there are other options that aren't Twitch.
Exactly, you can go on whatever, Ustream or whatever else. Yeah, so that's it. We got to keep moving. So we'd love to hear from the community, the news items that you guys and gals thought had the biggest impact. I'm trying to get better at that. Guys is such a default thing. That's not cool, man.
Well, can we say that guys is kind of a gender neutral thing where we come from? We do refer to a mixed group as a group of guys. I agree it's gender neutral, but still that masculine pronoun, man. So I would love to hear the community news items that you guys and gals thought had the biggest impact. So please shoot us an email at impactfactorpodcast@gmail.com. So Fliss, let's put things in perspective. Perspectives is part of the show, when any number of things can happen. In academia, it's when investigators share their opinions with the community at large. Here, Fliss and I are the investigators, and it's a revolving section where we experiment with what's worth discussing. So usually, Fliss and I will pick out an editorial piece and discuss it together. So we've pulled deep, man. We've scoured the depths of the internet. We've looked hard. We've gone all weird corners, Gamma Sutra, Kill Screen, IGN, Polygon. But I think we found something even better. Tell us a little bit about the piece we chose to discuss today. Well, the piece we chose today comes from an extremely obscure site called flissofthenorthstar.blogspot.com. And that is actually a blog written by this guy.
Who's this guy?
This guy, is
that his name?
Charles Fliss.
Charles Fliss.
Yes, the extremely handsome guy talking to you right now. I can say that because no one can see my face unless you check out my Twitter.
Good old power of radio.
Yep. So I'm enjoying that. But yeah, we are talking about actually something that I wrote and posted up on my blog, and that you were kind enough to feature on the Impact Factor.
Yeah, this was my featured article of the week. I spared you guys my writing for a week to make sure more eyeballs got on the story. So the piece is called How We Treat Gamer Girls, written by Charles Fliss, which kind of goes into depth about a lot of different aspects. But Fliss, if you can, give the audience kind of 1,000-foot view, general, your abstract, some general ideas, and then let's get into it.
Well, I really am happy to talk about this, especially on this podcast, because this is a piece that never would have gotten written if it weren't for the Impact Factor blog. Every Friday,
You're too kind.
Alex brings a great selection of different news articles and perspective pieces and editorials for you to read on the Impact Factor. It's certainly where I choose to read a lot of my video game news. I'd rather have him scour the internet for it than do it myself. But two of those pieces made a big impact on me, and they were both written by Maddie Myers, and she's writing about women
who's a phenomenal writer, by the way.
She's excellent. Yeah, definitely check out her stuff. And she's talking in both of these articles about what it's like to be a female gamer and the experiences that she's had in the gaming community as a female gamer over many years as a member of the community. And those two articles are The Cool Gamer Girlfriend, aka Unicorns Aren't Real, and in that one she examines a archetype of the cool gamer girlfriend, which is kind of a fantasy that exists both in commercial media and kind of in the community at large. And then the second article is called The Existential Dread of Fighting Games. And here she again uses a personal narrative to talk about what it's like to try and get very good in a highly competitive environment in the video game community. And so reading both of these, reading what she talks about in her problems, the things she's experienced in the community, it really struck me that I was missing a lot. And so in writing my article, How We Treat Gamer Girls, I kind of wanted to look at what we male gamers could do to make our community a better place for everyone, but specifically to step back and reevaluate the way we talk about female gamers, the way we treat female gamers at gaming events and online, and what we can do to make the community a better place for them.
Exactly. And there's a lot to get into here, but I think one of the most striking things about both of Myers' pieces, which you kind of pointed out nicely, is such hurdles that female gamers have had to go into to kind of get to even where they are now, but then the struggles they have. And so, video games for a long time was this very exclusionary community. We were, as you wrote about, we were the others. This was our hobby. Everyone made fun of us. We were considered the basement-dwelling, losers. You had to put your time in. You had to put the work in to be part of this community. And then it was kind of male-dominated at first, and so it's kind of like, a secret, boys' club. This is our thing. We've paid the social toll. We've been made fun of. We've been picked on. We don't have as many friends because we play video games. And so women are seen as that other because, they're trying to get into our club now. They haven't paid the price. They don't know what it's like. They're not real. They haven't gone through the strides they have. But as you pointed out, as Maddie Myers pointed out, that's not the case. Since the inception of video games, women have been interested, and I can't even imagine the social toll that they've had to pay, in addition to all the toll that guys have had to pay to be gamers, and fortunately is going increasingly away these days. Then they have to try and also, not only are they on the outskirts of whatever, the normal popular culture because they're into video games, but they're on the outskirts of that subsect because the people who play don't want to accept them.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous when you read these accounts to realize just the little things that are constantly bombarding female gamers, both from outside culture, but more pertinently from within the community, where we're sitting down and we're telling them like, you're not a real gamer, or even if we're not saying something that strongly, we're saying, prove to me that you're a real gamer, which is ridiculous, right? Because when we meet somebody who is a man at a gaming convention, we say, okay, you are a real gamer until you prove to me that you're not. And that's the same level that we need to be treating female gamers with.
And males sometimes can't even prove that they're not. When a guy is bad at games, some people just accept it. So I'll get into this in a second, but one of these hurdles that women still face now is exactly what you said. They have to prove that they're into games somehow. Like, this is something you have to prove. And so that puts women in a very precarious situation, at least from, again, I'm a male speaking from this perspective. I don't have all the insights, nor do you. We're taking Maddie Myers' work and your perspectives and pointing it from a male perspective. But that's so interesting to me, and it makes sense. It's something you kind of know intuitively, but you're stuck between such a rock and a hard place as a woman. Either you have to be the best at games when you show up somewhere where people are playing games. You have to be some expert, some wunderkind. You have to be amazing and beating all the guys to kind of prove that, oh yeah, you're serious about gaming. But then if you're not exceptional and you're not better than everyone there, then you're just some fake who's there for male attention or whatever else. You're there to try to be a poser. And so what about all the women who aren't as good at games? Like, if you think about it from the male perspective, how many of these popular YouTubers and Twitch streamers are, quotation fingers here, good at games? There's so few. Let's think about a couple of people I like to pick on because they're easy to pick on. Let's look at Total Biscuit. He's not good at games, but he still has this rabid following behind him. He's not good at playing video games. He doesn't compete at a high level. And so why every time you have some girl, some female who has a YouTube account or some female who has a Twitch account, everyone's like, oh, you suck. She's so bad at playing video games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's really important that we talk about and kind of break down some of these things. And that's kind of what I tried to do in my article, is to break down some of these stereotypes. And two really important ones, right, are the cool gamer girlfriend, or the superb gamer, we can call her, girl, and then also the fake geek girl, right? And to kind of break these down, right, the cool gamer girlfriend is the girl who is like really good at games, but also is not as good at games as her boyfriend and who like really likes to watch him play and really understands the way that the game is working so that she can know how well he's doing and appreciate that. And then the fake geek girl is the girl who only shows up to geek events for the attention from geeks. She's only after this male attention to feed some kind of narcissistic hidden desire that she needs. She needs this male attention to validate her. And both of these are ridiculous and harmful. And because you can't pigeonhole women into these kinds of stereotypes, and you can't filter your interactions with women through these stereotypes without it being really, really harmful, both to them and to you. And so in examining these, I wanted to suggest some things that guys could be doing to kind of take the veil off, to take these stereotypes out of the way we're talking about and with female gamers. Absolutely.
And it's one of the things I think when talking about a subject like this, you always run the risk of, as a white male voice, you have to be careful about what you say here, because I think we're at a very important time now where finally female voices are being heard on subjects like this. And you've got some great voices in the community like, Maddie Myers, like Anita Sarkeesian, and like so many others who are able to get their voices out there for the first time. But I think you choose a really smart perspective here, taking it from, this is a guy, this is what I've experienced, and this is the way that we as males can be better and more supportive. And I think one of those ways is getting rid of these kind of, these pigeonholing females, female gamers into these very specific subcategories, and try to start to make this a community of acceptance.
Yeah, and I think we really need to get over this idea that being a geek is a male thing, because it's not. I mean, being a geek is a people thing. People are geeks. That means women, that means men, that means people who are not cisgendered. That means that, you can be a geek, and there is no gendered experience that is necessary for geekdom. And I think moving past that would be a big first step.
Exactly, and I think one of your greatest calls here is we need to make this a community that's more accepting to them. And there's a lot of things that a lot of small things you can do to encourage this. And so one of the things you mentioned was to stop making rape jokes. And so I don't know what it is about, especially the gamer community, but rape jokes are one of the most common and most disgusting things you see everywhere.
I mean, you have pro gamers whose username or login name is rape. I mean, come on.
Yeah, what did he say? Like a League of Legends player or a Dota player? Something. Some sort of professional player's name is rape.
Yeah, and when there's a real double-edged sword here of harmfulness when you're making rape jokes, because when you look at the statistics on rape, just in the U.S., it's horrifying. And so when you're making rape jokes in a context where there are women present, then you're making a joke about something that someone in that group very well may have experienced. And then when you're doing that towards a woman, that that's obviously unacceptable. But then when you're doing it towards a guy, you're putting them in a position where you're feminizing them as a way of making them weak, and that's terrible, and that's harmful to men, and that's harmful to women. It's harmful to everybody in the group. So you have to be really careful, and that's a great, simple, easy thing you can do to make the community better.
Exactly. And obviously, yes, men get raped too, but the kind of the societal, I'm sure you could speak to this better, but the societal impacts and the societal significance and the weight of, rape jokes and rape culture and rape, just that very terrifying, horrible act is a much more affecting experience for women.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in talking out against this kind of thing, there are going to be labels that are going to be wielded against you by people who don't understand or who don't want to understand the way the community is changing, or the way the community has been and needs to be, and things like being called a white knight or a social justice warrior, and what both of those terms imply is that you're telling people to stop making rape jokes. You're telling people to be more respectful as a way of getting attention from girls. And this is problematic, true, because girls themselves are, with good reason, suspicious sometimes of these kinds of acts, right? You have the nice guy, quote unquote, stereotype, right, where you are just doing this kind of stuff because you're trying to get in their pants. And so don't be that guy. Take a minute and say that I'm going to do this because this is right. I'm going to do this because this makes the community better for women, and it makes the community better for me as a result. So don't. I know it sounds kind of crazy to say don't have ulterior motives, but seriously think about why you're doing these things.
Exactly. And we had a comment on your article from Martine that mentioned that, back in the day, she was a woman playing D&D starting in 1979, and that she had no trouble being accepted, and only had a few men to worry about. But I think it's important that again, we're talking as a group here, but no two women's experiences with entering a male-dominated kind of whatever hobby or interest, like gaming or like D&D, is the same. They're different. And so while it's great that she didn't find that she faced that kind of adversity, so many people do. And I think it's important to point out that you need to kind of both look at this individual and this group level. If you have a couple female friends, it's like, oh no, I've never felt bad, I've never felt objectified. That's great, and I'm really happy that they haven't. But there are so many women who face this kind of being viewed as an other and being viewed as a imposter, that an imposter, a poser, that you really need to consider that angle and try and treat everyone with that kind of mentality in mind, that you want to be inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially on the internet, which is where so much game culture has flourished. It's where so much geek culture has flourished. It's provided us a space where we can come together and be excited about what we love with other people. But the internet, because it allows big groups to come together, also allows a lot of groupthink to come together. I really want to give a shout out here to a great YouTube channel, the PBS Idea channel.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, really fun to watch. But they did a great show where they examined if Reddit showed the flaws in democracy, right? Where the things that the group likes get upvoted and unpopular opinions get downvoted out. And, so where we have these communities that are awesome, that let us come together, let us share our culture, they also can be really dangerous in that they can allow single-minded, hateful ideas to flourish and to, develop vocabularies to use against women, to use against minorities, coming into gaming culture, coming into geek culture, or have already been there and are trying to be excited about it. And so, we need to be really careful that we don't let these kinds of hateful voices become the dominant voices in our community.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into some of the disgusting, just vile garbage that is upvoted on Reddit. They're a very disgusting community at times. I'm a fan of the site in some ways for the content it provides, but it really encourages this really groupthink, disgusting behavior, especially in the gaming community. But I think one of the points you brought up here, which is really important, is this vocabulary that develops. Because one of the phenomenons that happens on Twitch, which is this platform for live streaming, I have a Twitch account, twitch.tv/megalodonphd, where you can watch me play Spelunky.
It's pretty great.
But on that, but on Twitch, every time there's a female streamer, you're going to have a couple things that happen in the chat. One of the things is that everyone is asking for nude pics. You get a stream of that, or talks about nude pics. And then girls on Twitch are referred to as grills. So instead of GIRLS, it's GRILLS, or whatever. I don't know if I spelled it right. It's still early in the morning. So referring to all these women as grills instead of as women or as girls really, again, kind of reinforces this notion that they're the other, that they're not part of the community. That it's a grill gamer. It's a grill who's playing games, not she's just a YouTube personality. She's just a Twitch streamer. And I think we need to discourage this groupthink mentality, and one of the ways to do that is stop using the language and stop using the vocabulary that continually subjugates and subdivides the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of thing, that using that language is a very dehumanizing way, right? It's a way of turning the female streamer into an object, turning her into something that is less than human. And all that stuff with the show your boobs comments and the nude pics and all that stuff. That's not the kind of thing nobody comments on a male streamer's stream. Like flex, show your pecs, wave your dick. Yeah. Nobody does that, and nobody should do that, right? Like that sounds ludicrous, and it should sound ludicrous that people do that to female streamers. And what's actually ridiculous is that we have accepted for so long, that's just normal. That's just a thing that women streamers have to deal with. And that's not okay. Yeah.
And again, all women streamers get called out like, "Oh, you suck at the game." Well, watch most of the male streamers. They're not, in general, it's hard to be good at video games.
Yeah, I mean, they're
skill-intensive pursuits.
There's a whole really great discussion to be had here about streaming and streaming culture. And I'll try and cover this really briefly. But streaming is not actually about skill at video games. It's about being an entertaining personality when you play video games, and that's okay, right? The same way that you don't expect a color commentator during a sports match to be an amazing football player, although many of them are former amazing football players. Just how many streamers are very talented gamers, right? But it's more about how entertaining you can be while you're doing the activity. Right, and some streamers are very educational based, and that's great. But that in itself is a kind of entertainment. So that's a very interesting discussion that I'm sure we'll get into another time, certainly.
But yeah, agreed. So yeah, ultimately, I think your calls are good. Just every guy, just try to discourage this behavior. Don't use the language. Stop using rape jokes. Try to be as inclusionary as possible. And if you can find any moment to educate another guy about being inclusive, I think it's worth your effort. Every small step works towards a better, more inclusive gaming future, and it's good to try and be as best allies as we can.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm talking from a high horse here, because this has taken me a really long time to figure out. It's taken me a lot of work to kind of move past a lot of my own hang-ups with this stuff. And
yeah, we won't even get into some of the very well, looking back on it, very terrible and disgusting jokes we made as high schoolers.
Yeah, we were jerks too. And what's important,
we were part of the problem.
Yeah, definitely. I could personally say I was definitely part of the problem. But now we have a chance to make things better. And so no matter what you have done, no matter what jokes you've made, this is a chance to correct that behavior, and that's the most important thing, right? It's not what you did yesterday, it's what you do tomorrow. So this is how we can make a community that's better for everyone. And I know this is going to be a painful process. I know opening yourself up means you're going to get hurt, and be the tough people to go out there and do that. And finally, for me, if we have any female gamers out there listening, I just want to encourage you to please keep on fighting the good fight, to give us guys time, because a lot of us are trying, and we're gonna get there. We can do this as a community. We're gonna get there, and we're not gonna be able to do that without you. So please hang in there and try and be patient with us.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. So yeah, we just skimmed the surface of this article. Fliss, you did a great job. I know he put a lot of work into this, so I'd really appreciate anybody who's listening to this, anybody who knows Fliss, anyone who knows me. Really, please take the time. It's not that long. It's a long article, but it'll take you 10, 15 minutes to read it. So please give it the time. So that's at flissofthenorthstar.blogspot.com. I think it's the first post that he has featured right now, but you guys look it up, How We Treat Gamer Girls, on his site, and just go to his blog for other reasons. There's a lot of good stuff there, but I think this article is really worth your time. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, because he's my friend and he is, my good pal. He's a great writer, and I think it's really worth your time.
Well, thanks for your kind words, Alex. And yeah, you can see it on my blog. You can also find it on the Impact Factor. So wherever you want to read it, please give it a chance, give it a look, and please let me know what you think. Please let me know what I got right and what you think I got wrong. And you can do that on my blog. You can do that on Twitter as well. So please let me know.
And his Twitter again is @thecfliss. We'll go over that in the end again, but yeah, it's important. So now that our work is done and logged, let's get into our experimental methods. Experimental methods. Fliss and I talk about the video games we've been playing recently. No papers, pipettes, cells, or census, just our words. We look at what works, what doesn't, and what we're looking forward to testing. So, Fliss, what experiments were you running this week? But first, I forgot this earlier. We got some feedback that I wanted to get into, which hopefully we've been doing a better job. So one of the feedback we got was from a user who listened, Tetris for Me, who said that he liked it best when we're being conversational, and less kind of stiff robot-y. And I know, folks, anyone who's listened to all 4 episodes, which is probably just you and me, Fliss, at this point, we're pretty stiff and robotic. So hopefully we've been more conversational, a bit better. Please let us know, by sending us an email, or whatever means you can to contact us. Let us know if this is something you guys are more interested in. We're trying to be more conversational, a little bit more lively.
And let us know what you're interested in hearing about.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing this at 7 in the morning where I am and at midnight where he is, so it's tough for us both to be energetic, but we're trying. So yeah, Fliss, what experiments were you running this week?
Well, I'm continuing my practice with Street Fighter 4. And certainly having a new arcade stick has made that a much more pleasant experience.
Got to break it in.
Yeah, I just love caressing the sweet, supple surface.
Hey now.
But
this is a family podcast.
Yeah, but then the real thing I've been doing this week, I've been on the road a lot. I was traveling, did have to go to Tokyo for a couple days, which was great. Akihabara is wonderful.
I'm jealous.
Retro games.
I want to go to Akihabara.
Yeah, don't worry. I got you some excellent souvenirs.
Ooh.
Hope you like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so, but on the road, right, I don't have a Vita, a PSP, a 3DS, any of those handheld games. It's been a long time since I've had one of those, so I was limited to some mobile gaming, and, I'm a big JRPG fan, and I decided it was time to go back to my roots. I just bought Dragon Quest, the original Dragon Quest.
Oh, the original Dragon Quest. That's old
1,
school.
Ported over to iOS, and I've been playing that on my iPhone 5C.
Oh, nice. So tell me about that. I really, as much as I am into JRPGs, and I've played a lot, I never got around to playing the Dragon Quest series. So give the folks and me a little bit of a description. What exactly is it like? What's it about?
Well, Dragon Quest is one of the original JRPGs and really one of the original RPGs. It took a lot of the elements of previous games that were kind of disparate and brought them together in one of the first really recognizable RPGs. It's kind of like the first ancestor of modern games that we would recognize, or certainly one of the first. And it was huge in Japan. It was released as Dragon Warrior in the United States to avoid any copyright or trademark conflicts with Dungeons and Dragons. So you may have played it under that name. But it shows its age, certainly, when you play it. But it's the first kind of, you have a world, you have a character, you level up, you use spells, you use attacks, you buy weapons and armor, you have several different stats, including strength, agility, defense, things like that. So it's got a lot of the early elements, and it also introduced some really iconic characters, like the Dragon Quest Slime, who is one of the most adorable enemies you will ever fight.
Yeah, he's pretty cute.
Yeah, look up a picture of him if you don't know what I'm talking about, because
Dragon Quest Slime.
Definitely, does not sound cute, is cute. Typical Japan.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm really impressed with the mobile port. I was really suspicious of what it would be like to use a kind of touchpad D-pad. And
yeah, so does it have the simulated controls? Like, it has like the D-pad, the touch D-pad on there, and like the touch buttons.
Yes, it does. It starts with a touch D-pad, and the way that works, it's more like a touch control stick actually, because you've got like a D-pad, and then you've got a control stick in the middle of that. So you can drag your thumb around to steer your character as though you're using a control stick, but then you can also tap each of the D-pad directions to move like one space at a time, to let you line things up if you're having some issues with your thumb, which I have had. I'm definitely getting used to it. But then the rest of the controls are not simulating buttons, but you have like a little menu button and a map icon, and then you can open those up for other touchscreen controls. So it does a very good job of efficiently managing the touchscreen space to be both display and control. And it did a much better job than I expected when I first bought it.
Okay, so is this I know a lot of the times companies like, is Capcom the one behind Dragon Quest? I'm not sure. A lot of companies, when they're, maybe Square Enix or Square, whoever. Either way, a lot of times when Japanese companies especially will release
Square
these...
Enix, by the way.
Okay, a lot of times when these companies will re-release older RPGs on the phone, they'll re-release it, but they'll put it in weird forms and weird ports, and sometimes they'll be free, but then you have to pay for stuff. So is this a paid version of the game, so it's all fully featured?
Yes, this is a $3 download, $2.99 from the U.S. North American iTunes Store. App Store.
Nice. Nice. So it kind of your typical format. You explore towns, you build your party. You've got the random battles where you're walking on the overworld and the screen just flashes, and then you're in a turn-based kind of style of fighting.
I haven't built any of a party yet. I don't actually know if I will in this game. I know you do.
Interesting.
In later Dragon Quest games, I know you do. But I'm enjoying it. It's one of the things I love about it actually right now is that it has the kind of wild difficulty variations of early video games where I'll cross a bridge into an area, and the map is fairly small. You can cover it pretty quickly, the whole thing, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to get the story rolling. I'm not that far into it.
Yeah, no, that's something that doesn't necessarily, it's not always handed to you on a silver platter like it is nowadays, some of those older games. So I'm always like, what the heck am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and it's got, those Pokemon-style overworld encounters, and so, I'm just kind of wandering around and leveling up, and occasionally I'll cross a bridge into a new area, and then a skeleton will pop up, and he'll attack me, and if I don't immediately press flee, he'll attack me again, and then he'll attack me again, and then I'm dead, and that's it. Shouldn't have gone in that area, I guess.
It's very Dark Soulsy. Yeah, you can go the wrong way, but you better be...
Yeah, you better be ready. But, I like that. It's something that I think when I was younger might have frustrated me. But now that I'm a more experienced gamer, and especially where so many games today, they do a good job of leading you along because they're designed for new gamers and for older gamers. And I think actually, as a more experienced gamer, you get more out of these early games than you maybe would have at the time. Because you have a better idea of what to do and an understanding of the mechanics that were just then evolving. So it's been a really fun way to go back.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, does it hold up? Does it feel like it has enough modern design sensibilities? Does it feel like you're playing, oh god, like, I get what they're going for here, but we've made a lot of strides since then to make for more user-friendly or more engaging experiences? Or what's your feel on that?
I mean, the combat certainly leaves something to be desired compared to modern games, at least at this point where I am in the game, and I'll keep you updated on that. But, there's a lot of comparisons to be made both in the look and feel of the combat to early Pokemon games. But, in that same kind of slight animations, small things. But, especially now, just kind of being able to pick it up and put it down, there's a great quick save feature, so you can save at any time from anywhere. Very conducive to using it on mobile.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that was a feature that was made for the mobile version.
Yeah, originally you had to go all the way back to the first castle town and get the king to write down your logs. So,
oh gosh,
the quick save is very welcome addition. So that I think it actually works really well as a mobile game, right? Because you can have that quick engagement. Oh, I think I'm going to grind for 10 minutes while I'm waiting for the bus. So that's really pleasant. It's just been extremely enjoyable so far. If you like JRPGs, if you're interested in the history of video games, if you just kind of want to see what a really early JRPG looked like, then I encourage you to give it a look. And there are more expensive ones, later versions that you can go to, but I'm trying to play them all in order. So we're going to see how this goes.
For $3, you're not really going to go too wrong with it, right?
And that's better than you're going to do for a lot of mobile games that are designed for mobile.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So
that's great.
How about you, man? What have you been up to?
All right, so on the JRPG front, so I spent a good deal of last episode talking about Persona 4 Golden, and I'm still very deep into that game. I'm getting a lot further. I think maybe I'm nearing up to maybe having only 15 hours left, maybe 20 hours left. God, because that game's massive. I'm about 61 hours in, 62 hours in.
That's awesome.
The story's not done. It's got a good ways to go. So I because I kind of like want to make sure I don't miss out on anything. I've been looking just kind of kind of briefly at guys, and if I made some wrong decisions when I was playing last night, I could have ended the game and had like a bad ending. So I could have been done last night.
Man.
But I'm like, no way. I don't want to have the bad ending. I want to go see the true ending of the game.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I'm saying I probably have another 15, 20 hours to sink into that before I'm done with the story. So that's going to be like an 80, 90-hour game for me. Oh, man.
Props, man. Props.
The game is great, though. I'm telling you. I didn't think I would care this much about a group of Japanese high schoolers, but man.
Well,
they feel like friends.
So, I am our anime geek on this podcast, and
that's true.
I'm always after Alex over there to watch more of it. It would be double.
I had my time.
Be double filtered. I tend to watch stuff that both my brother and I agree is good, and then recommend it to you. But if any of you out there have seen Madoka Magica, please tell Alex to watch it. It's good already. He needs to see it. But Persona 4. The real question now is: are you going to watch the Persona 4 anime? Is that going to be the next step?
Nope. Not going to. I mean, I am into the characters and I'm into the world, because I even caught myself contemplating getting the Persona 4 fighting game that was released. So it was released on PS3. It's called Persona 4 Arena, and then later it was updated to Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
A lot of people over here liked it.
Yeah, no, and I remember it came out to pretty high critical praise here, too. And and it does continue the story of Persona 4, but I don't know. I don't really like picking up fighting games that I know I'm not going to be able to put that much time into because I want to be good, and I don't know if it's worth it. But this fall, they're going to release this game called Persona 4 Dancing All Night, which is a kind of rhythm game.
Hey, that sounds fun.
Yeah, so with the same characters, but instead of like this kind of traditional turn-based JRPG style of fighting monsters, you fight monsters through like doing dances like a TDR or something by pressing the right inputs. And the game has this really fun sense to it. And so, especially because I'm interested in the characters and interested in the world, and I know that Justine she loves rhythm games like that. So I'm probably gonna pick that up. That's coming out in the Vita as well. So I'll get that. But I'm not watching no anime.
All right, well, I will find something other than Evangelion to get you to watch.
I had my time in the sun. I watched a lot of series, but I fell out of it.
Yeah, but you also watched a lot of bad series. I mean, you liked Bleach.
Yeah, there was a time and place for Bleach, but that, folks, don't. It's bad. But another thing I've been playing that I've sunk a lot of time into is a little game called Nidhogg. It came out a little while ago on the PS4. It's been on the PC for a while. And this game it's a very kind of simplistic art style, kind of 8-bit looking, 2D, competitive fencing game.
But it is bloody.
Yeah, it's pretty bloody too. You and another player compete in this kind of 2D plane, and you start in the center of this map, and this is a 2D map, and you have swords, and you can fence each other, and the point of the game is to kill your opponent at least once, either through stabbing them with your sword, or you can throw your sword at them, or you can beat them up. And then you have the arrow that points your direction. So if you started on the left side, you need to move leftwards. Right side, if you're on the left side, you need to move rightwards. On the right side, you need to move leftwards. And you proceed from screen to screen, kind of battling your opponent to kind of keep advancing your direction until you reach the end of the map where you can run off a cliff and you get eaten by a Nidhogg, which is a mythical monster.
From Norse mythology.
But this game... Norse mythology. There we go. But yeah, the game is so kind of frantic and fun. There's tense battles. There's always standoffs. Like, should you try to sword fight someone? Should you just try to throw your sword at them? Should you try and roll or duck or dodge over them? You can jump and you can use a dive kick to attack. And the controls are really simple. The gameplay is really simple. But just this fun dynamic of like, how should I approach them? It really does kind of feel like you're fencing, but it's goofy and silly because you're these little 8-bit characters and you're on these crazy maps. And, I'm sure people can be really good at this game because the controls are kind of deceptively complex. Like you can unarm your opponent if you change the level of your sword by pressing up and down. You can parry their attacks if they throw your sword at you. You can raise your sword to the appropriate level and you can block it. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that goes into it. But I had a blast. I sat down and I played a couple games with Justine. We did a best of 5, and she won. She won the best of 5. So anybody can pick it up and play it. I mean, she's very good at video games, but it's just goofy and fun. It seems like a perfect kind of party game because there's that tension, like oh no, I'm running, I'm dodging, I'm jumping, I'm rolling. But it also allows these kind of hardcore people to really, you could know how the distance, how many pixels your sword moves when you do an attack, and so to perfectly space yourself to be able to beat people. And it's just one of those games that's fun. It's along the same lines of a lot of these great indie games which kind of have taken up the mantle for these fun couch, co-op and couch competitive games that kind of died off for a while. Of course, Nintendo's still doing it with, their Mario parties or Super Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart, but everywhere else it kind of just disappeared. And so indie teams really came in, and they were the ones who were like, look, we know this experience is fun, we want to go into it. So you've got great games like Sports Friends, which came out, Towerfall Ascension, which I highly recommend, and now Nidhogg is so much fun to just goof around and just try to, if you watch any Let's Play or any kind of gameplay of it, you'll see how kind of goofy it is and just fun, and it's more fun to play than it is to watch. So I really recommend it. I picked it up, it was on sale on the PS Store. I picked it up, I don't know, it was $2 or $3.
I was definitely after you to pick that up because
yeah, Fliss was the one who asked me on Twitter to get it. So I'm glad I picked it up and played it. I got a couple trophies, whatever. I sunk maybe just a couple hours into it, but it's a game that if I had company over, it would be a game, even if they're not the most hardcore or whatever, or even if they're not people who play video games, you can hey, look, you can move left or right, attack with the square button, jump with the X button, and then it could be a goofy, fun party game.
And I can definitely attest to how great this game is as a party game. I've almost exclusively played it as a party game. Of course, streaming from PC onto my television using an HDMI cable. But I love it. I think this game is it's one of the best party games. It's, again, the controls are so simple to pick up, and especially in a big group where you're handing off the controller, passing around. When you have those reversals, those where one person looks like they're in the lead, and then, a sword throw catches them from behind or something like that. It's so great when you get the whole group going, oh, and all that good stuff. And it is so much fun. And it's so much fun to watch. Your friends play it, and then to try your own hand at it, and it's really something that, like Alex said, even non-gamers can pick up really fast. You really only need about 10 minutes with the game to get a really firm grasp of what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. There's those moments where, I would try and start trash talking. I'm like, I'm going to get you. Oh, I'm going to throw. Oh, I'm going to dodge. Oh, yeah, I'm going to roll. Oh, I'm going to get you. Ah, gotcha. And then when you start running, like the run animation on these little pixel men is so hilarious. Their limbs are just kind of flailing.
It's amazing.
You can also hold up to kind of cock your sword above your head, and you can run with that cocked. And it knows what's fun about playing games together, and I think it perfectly distills that to a very simple but very engaging package.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to, us getting together to play that. That's going to be great.
Yeah. Another reason you got to come visit again, man. And by visit, I'm just going to trap you here. And I'm like, look, you can't go back. Find a job here. You can stay with us until you get a job. You're staying.
Yeah, but, well, that playable trailer is pretty enticing bait, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, folks, convince this dude to come back to the States. Live in the Bay Area. It'll be good. It's a good place to live, dude.
Yeah, well, Nidhogg again. Playing Nidhogg together is a pretty enticing.
It's pretty good. It'd make the recording this podcast a little easier. None of you falling asleep and not being able to record. Oh, you thought I forget that, folks? Again, Fliss, our normal recording time was 24 hours ago, but this guy fell asleep and slept through his alarm, and now we're recording it a day late.
Yep, that is completely my fault. I have no excuses. I was snoring thoroughly when I should have been recording this podcast. Absolutely.
It's not even like I gave up. I sent him 1,000 messages on Skype. I texted his phone 20 times. I called him on his phone.
Some of us don't wake up after, a few text messages.
Yeah. So, note to yourself. If you're trying to contact this dude, just give up. If he's asleep there, you're not reaching him. Unless you can go there and physically shake him awake, it's not happening.
Yeah, well, I like to practice my deep sleep. Keep it going and sleep through anything. I can sleep through anything pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. For the last bit of time, Fliss, anything you want to talk about? A little bit of errata? Yeah,
man. So I got a lot of cool things going on. Got to go to Tokyo again for a business trip. Got to spend time in Akihabara. If you've never been to Akihabara, it's kind of the mecca of video game and anime culture in Japan, although it's gotten a little bit touristy since it got famous, and so now Den Town over in Osaka is a little bit closer to what the Akihabara of olden days used to be, but it still has some of the best places that you can go here to play games, to watch games, and to buy games. Special shout out to one of the best fighting arcades in the world there. Great arcade.
What was the name of that?
Hey.
Hey?
Yeah, it's called Hey, H-E-Y.
Cool.
This little arcade, but some of the best players do hang out there. Pretty amazing.
Daigo?
Great to watch. I've never seen him there, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Okay.
And so a lot of fun, good stuff. Great to go there. Good to spend time in Tokyo, seeing that place. It's really amazing. But walking around Akihabara, if you are into anime, there's some really cool stuff coming out. There's some really exciting stuff this season. And I myself am catching up on stuff. My blog is called Fliss of the North Star. That's a reference to the anime Hokuto no Ken, or Fist of the North Star, which
I'm sure it's good.
It's great. I'm gonna make Alex watch it. It is.
No, he's not.
It's gonna happen. So if you're looking for something to do, check out some of the new anime coming out, and check out Fist of the North Star, which is a classic and enjoyable at any time. Alex, what about you? What are you thinking about?
I got a lot on my mind, but one of the things on my mind is that I'm going to see Jurassic World in IMAX 3D. I don't know if I told you about it.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I bought my tickets, 2 weeks ago. I got dead center of there's a movie theater in San Francisco Metreon, and it's this huge. You've got this huge IMAX theater. The screen is massive. It's a cool theater. You've reserved seating, which I'm telling you, I can't go back now that you've reserved seating at movie theaters. It's such a blessing.
Yeah, man.
There's nothing worse than having to show up like half an hour early to a movie to hope you don't get some horrible seat.
Dude, yeah, every theater in Japan, pretty much without exception, is reserved seating. And at first I was like, what? So reserved seating at the movies? This is downright totalitarian. And then, after like 2 visits to the theater, I was just like, I mean, this is downright great.
Oh, man, I was going to go downright grititarian, but, I mean, all right.
No, that was way better. You should have cut me off. What are you doing?
All right. Well, come on. I'm not trying to cut you off. But, so I'm so excited to see that. I don't think the movie's going to be great. I'm hoping it's at least the second best Jurassic Park movie. I don't have any ambitions for it, especially after seeing Mad Max Fury Road. I think that's probably going to be the best movie of the summer, if not one of the best movies of the year. But I'm excited. I'm such a fan. Like, everyone has their franchise that, like, define their childhood. For a lot of people, for, like, in our kind of geek culture, that was Star Wars for them, or whatever, Transformers, or whatever it was. Mine was Jurassic Park.
Yeah, this kid, let me tell you guys, this guy, Jurassic Park, man, he knew all the dinosaurs. He knew what, what their, I don't want to say powers, but, what they could do, what they couldn't do. He knew every line in all the movies, including Lost World, and that's dedication.
Hold on to your butts.
Yeah, so I mean, I cannot wait to hear what you think about the new one.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to see it. Chris Pratt, I like him. He seems like a funny guy. They seem to be doing some cool stuff there. It's I'm not super sold on the premise necessarily, but I just I can't wait. I really want to see Jurassic World. It's my most anticipated. It was my most anticipated movie of the year. Ahead of Star Wars, ahead of Avengers. The second I knew it was coming out, it was like that was the movie, no matter what, I was seeing this year. So I got my tickets, dead center, perfectly situated in a big IMAX screen. I'm so excited.
Man, that is awesome. That is so cool. Yeah, and
I've won. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I will be really psyched to see that movie as well when it finally comes out here. There's gonna be a couple episodes as the movies come out later where I'm just like, hey, I finally saw this 2-month-old movie.
Yeah, right. I'll check back in with you in October when Jurassic World actually releases there. I don't know if that's right, but it's probably somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm going to look, but that doesn't sound too far off.
Yeah. But then my last little recommendation is last little bit of rad. We've been running long, but we got a good conversation going. I hate exercising. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I hate exercising. I can't stand it.
What?
Like, if I'm playing a sport, I can trick myself into exercising, but like I've never liked running. I don't like lifting. It just, it's the worst. But I found my niche, and that's swimming. I love swimming. Even when I'm pushing really hard and doing laps, I'm still like, man, I'm swimming. This is fun. And so I think for all you guys who are struggling to like find something to like work out at, and I swim once a week just because it's hard to find that time. So it's not like I'm some sort of paragon of, I changed my life. But just do something find something that you enjoy to exercise, and I think you'll be good for it. So, I love swimming. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, man, no, that's a great choice. Definitely. Good way to stay healthy, stay fit. I'm playing softball right now, currently batting 0-0-0 on the bench.
Nice.
Yeah, but no, that's great. It's hard to believe, but this episode marks nearly a whole month of the Impact Factor. And we're looking forward to many more. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please keep in touch with us. You can find me on Twitter at the Fliss. That's at THECFLISS. Also, check out my blog, Fliss of the North Star, for my thoughts on pop culture, Japan, and more. I update every Monday and Thursday. This week, we had our special crossover with the Impact Factor. Check out that article. Let me know what you thought about it. Thanks again to Alex for featuring my work on his site. That means a lot.
Of course. It was great.
Yeah, so please visit my blog. That's flissofthenorthstar.blogspot.com. I want to talk with you guys, so let me know what you think.
Yeah, please talk with the guy. He won't shut up, so he needs more people to talk.
I know
to.
That's right.
But thanks everyone for spending time with us on our 4th episode. Hopefully we've been a little less robotic, a little more fun. Let me know. I've been getting experience. I've been streaming Spelunky. I've posted those on our YouTube account. I'll get to that in a second. So I think I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, no, his Spelunky runs are fantastic to watch. I gotta say, he is substantially better than me at the game. I actually just finally bought it for myself instead of just bumming off other people's consoles. But he is great to watch because he's so skilled, but he also gets careless, and it's hilarious. So do check it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to expect to hear from you on next experimental methods, little Spelunky play.
Oh, definitely.
Gotta get to the jungle.
Definitely.
Gotta get to the jungle at least. So yeah, a month in, and we're creeping ever closer to the Christmas of video game news, folks. E3. So if you're hearing this now, and we're going to have some big E3 stuff coming up on the Impact Factor, both the podcast and my own stuff, so keep an eye out. So if you're hearing this now, chances are you found it on our SoundCloud page, which is soundcloud.com/theimpactfactor. We post a new episode every Friday. We'll see what happens this week. Hopefully it's Friday. Hopefully you're hearing this on Friday night, and you're like, man, these guys keep a regular schedule. So for an archive of old episodes, check us out on YouTube by searching the Impact Factor video games. And our YouTube now is more than just our podcast. I've been streaming on Twitch and uploading the archives onto YouTube, and I've been trying to do the Spelunky Daily Run, the Spelunky Daily Challenge every day, and see if I can't get to Hell, which is the final hard level. And that game is brutally challenging. Even if you're good, one small mistake ends up in death. I think you're probably noticing a trend with the kind of games I like.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But it's such a fun game. I have such a great time playing it. I'm getting better at talking while playing. It's certainly an interesting skill that I didn't think necessarily you would have to build up, but check it out. All those episodes are on a playlist on our YouTube account.
Yeah,
so
and
that's,
just look up. If the timing works out, I will be in the chat as much as possible on Twitch. So, check it out. Talk with us.
Yeah, so, again, that's YouTube by searching us, the Impact Factor video games. I don't know if it's going to take us a while to get a custom URL, so sorry,
please
folks.
Subscribe to help us get a better URL.
Exactly, yeah. Please subscribe. Like and subscribe and comment below. No. The Impact Factor is an extension of my blog about video games, theimpactfactor.blogspot.com. Check there every Tuesday for a new review or article, and every Friday for my curation of the best written pieces from the world of gaming. And so please, all one of you maybe who's listening, send us comments and suggestions for the podcast to impactfactorpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at Alex Samocha. That's Alex S.A. Mocha, like the coffee. So, until next time, folks, make an impact.